Hey friends, very good morning. I'm a few minutes early just to ensure and check if everything is working all right. Uh, if you have any issues, do let me know on the chat window. Uh, let's just see how everything is working. Yeah, I can hear myself.
I'm a few minutes.
Yeah, I can hear myself and I don't see any hiccups. I can see my own live stream on YouTube. So, yeah, if anybody has any issues, do let me know. And we'll start the session at 10:05 sharp so that other people also can get a few minutes of time to join in. Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for asking, Aditya. Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing good, and let's get started. Yeah, I'll keep the chat window. Let's chat for a while. Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining in. And yeah, so as I was just mentioning, we'll start in about 8 to 10 minutes. In the meantime, if you have questions, I could answer them. Let everybody join in. I typically tend to join at least 4 or 5 minutes early to see if there are any problems with the audio or video streaming. So yeah, so somebody says I'm working on RPA project wherein we automate mundane business processes using Python and Selenium. I'm keen on using text classification combined with Selenium. That's a very good task. Actually, I do cover that as one of the case studies or one of the projects that people who know Selenium, who are in the automation world, who are in the automated testing world can certainly work on. Selenium is an extremely powerful tool that I have personally used while I was at Amazon. Again, with other tools, again, it was mostly engineers in my team who were leveraging it, but it's a super duper powerful tool. Makes a lot of sense, Sajish. So if you're working on RPA problems, doing text classification, again, for text classification, don't use Selenium, which you can use both in Java and in Python. I recommend you use the Python version of Selenium. Primarily because of the fundamental reason that Python has better machine learning and deep learning and text classification libraries than Java itself. So if you don't know, you can write Selenium code in Python also, just almost as well as you can write it in Java. So try to use Python there, and that will surely be helpful. So how is real-time sentiment analysis on e-commerce website? So what sentiment are you analyzing? So what sentiment on an e-commerce website are you analyzing? So that's very important. For example, if you go to Amazon, yeah, it's also there on Amazon India. So whenever you're looking at any product, I think this is something that they launched in the last 1 year or so. It's very useful. They go through all the comments of the customers and they summarize that on the left side. Okay, let me show you this. Let me just show you. That's okay. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so let's take an example. I hope everybody can. Okay, why is it not going to? Okay, or let's just go to amazon.com. Okay, so let's just go here, pick up any product. Okay, so let's take this product for example. Okay, which is Amazon Alexa. So if you go here, look at this part. I hope everybody can see my screen, right? Look at this part. It talks about by feature. So it looks at all of the customer reviews, groups the customer reviews by feature. If you look at this section, okay, let me take my pen and write on top of this, right? So for example, if you look at this part, right, this is a very, very interesting part for work that if you want to do on Amazon or any e-commerce website. So nobody wants to read these. There are 1691 comments. Nobody has time to go through all of them. So if you can somehow read all of these comments, and if you can summarize it by feature, like Alexa integration, voice recognition, remote control, volume control, if you can summarize all of this, that's a great feature, because this improves the customer's ability to understand what is there in these thousands of reviews, right? So this is certainly one interesting project that you could pursue if you're doing some sentiment analysis. If you're doing some sentiment analysis work on Amazon, I think somebody was asking this question, right? So that's an interesting project that you could work on, right? Okay, let's see. So somebody is asking about BERT. Again, we are doing these live sessions regularly. We did encoder decoder models the last week. Next week we'll be doing these attention models, and the week after that we'll do your transformer models and then BERT. For each of them we do explain for all of our course registered students. We're anyway covering these advanced topics up to BERT as extensions to what we've already covered in our course videos. So that's something that we're anyway doing now. Okay. So somebody says he can't crack coding interviews or competitive coding and he wants to get into Google Brain. Please forget it. You will never. So if you really want to get into, forget about Google Brain. Google Brain is one of the most advanced projects at Google. Even if you want to become a software engineer at Google, you have to crack Google's software engineering or Google's competitive programming or competitive coding rounds. The bar for Google Brain is much, much higher. So in addition to your coding skills, especially if you're a computer science student, they look at how deep and how broad is your knowledge in machine learning, deep learning, advanced areas. So if you can't crack Google's simple coding rounds, forget about Google Brain. It's out of question. It's like saying I want to do a PhD without passing my BTech. Okay, this what you're asking is analogous to this. Okay. Sounds good. Manufacturing IT projects, I am unable to get some data sets. Naveen, I'll talk about some of these problems in the live session today. I'll also tell you about some interesting. I looked at manufacturing problems themselves. There are some interesting data sets from Mercedes-Benz, from Bosch, some of the largest companies in manufacturing and in industrial engineering. So I'll give you the pointers. By the end of this live session, you'll get some pointers on that topic also. So, okay, somebody is talking about networks, right? So again, I have not made notes for networks themselves, but I've seen a couple of very interesting projects which are worked on if you're a network engineer, right? So a couple of things, again, you can Google search for this. The network engineers at Google's data centers have come up with ways on using machine learning and deep learning to save on the cooling costs, right? Because imagine if you have a huge data center, the costs to just run the data center are humongous. So there is a lot of research work and also published work that you can go and look up on, which network engineers do. Obviously, another very major thing that network engineers do is network security, broadly speaking. And there are a ton of startups there. Just Google search for network security. Okay, let me do it for you. It should be straightforward, and I'm sure we can easily find these. So network security and deep learning. Just type Kaggle, you'll get data sets also fairly easily. Okay, so there is actually a whole area called network security on Kaggle with okay, so this is not much of a data set here. ML for, look at this. There is this GitHub project which is machine learning for cyber security, right? With papers, books, data sets, all of this stuff. Courses, tutorials, all of this stuff. So for most of the projects, they're only a Google search away. Again, I'm not a domain expert in many of these topics. So for example, look at this. Okay, ML 2016 Cybersecurity Attack Defender. Okay, so this is also interesting. Okay, this is a university course project. Good, you get data set on Kaggle very easily. Now you want to determine if there is a cybersecurity attack as a network engineer. That's something that's certainly exciting, right? Again, okay. There is also malicious intent detection problem on Kaggle. Oh, I forgot completely. Microsoft malware prediction. This is one of the case studies in our course actually. So we have a course case study called malware prediction. Which with data using Microsoft's open source data. That's like terrific data, right? So if you're a network engineer or if you're into cyber security or network security, there are tons of projects of that type. It's just a Google search away. Again, I'm no domain expert. I've never worked on network security or cyber security, but finding good relevant data sets and projects should not be very hard, and should not be very hard to solve these problems also if your core competence in machine learning and data science are strong, right? So, okay, I'll cover a couple of projects for mechanical engineers also. I've made note of that. I've looked at the comment section in our announcement video. I've made some notes for mechanical engineers also because I have a little experience because I was mentoring a startup which works on condition-based monitoring and predictive analytics. So I can shed some light on that problem, right? Uh, I will cover banking and financial services also as part of the course, as part of the examples, right? Medicine, I will cover that. I'll give you some data sets and problems also. Please don't worry. These are topics that I've already made notes for. Let's get started anyway, since we are anyway at it. It's already 10:05, so let's get started. Let me just share the screen. Again, this is a bunch of notes that I've written. I'll share these notes at the end of the discussion. You don't have to take notes from this. I'll share this whole PDF file to you with all the links, with all the material. I'll share it to you at the end of the discussion. I'll post it in the comment section itself, right? So don't worry about it. Please don't worry about taking notes. I'm just checking if everything is all right. Okay, so, let's get started. First, let me do one thing. Since many of your questions have overlaps, let me try and cover what I have written as my notes. And at the end of it, I'll take breaks in between. I'll also entertain questions from you. And at the end of it, if I could not cover some concepts, I'll try to cover them, right? So, so again, please, you don't have to write notes from this because I'll share this whole document with you. Okay, sounds good. Let's get started then. Let me use a reasonable color. Okay. So these are machine learning projects primarily for career transition. The reason we are doing this live is we did a live, I think 3 or 4 weeks back, wherein we discussed about how important portfolio projects are for career transition to machine learning roles. Right? We discussed that in detail. Then we started getting a lot of emails and questions from students saying, can you give us some idea on what types of projects we should be doing? With some examples. People wanted examples. So I thought, let me cover a few examples and show you how some of these projects can be. Again, these are just a small subset of examples, right? Of course, it's impossible in a 1 hour or in a 60 to 75 minute live session. It's impossible to cover everything, right? So I'll try to do the best that I can. Okay, so let's go here. So what's the agenda for the rest of the discussion? I'll take each role and cover a few relevant projects for each role. While discussing each of these roles, I'll also tell you some general guidelines, okay, which are independent of the role, right? We'll start from freshers, we'll go to software testers, we'll go to software engineers, we'll do web development engineers, app developers, mechanical engineers, all of those roles we'll try to cover. Okay, so but let's go slowly one by one. We'll take each of these roles, but a very important disclaimer that I want to make it very clear before we start is I am not an expert in all the domains I'm about to discuss. I have lot of exposure and experience in e-commerce. So I have a lot of experience in e-commerce. I have a lot of experience in online advertising. So these are domains. I also have some experience in search, in computer vision tasks, in speech processing, etc. But I'm not an expert in all the domains that I'm about to discuss. So I'm sure some of you are more knowledgeable than I am, because imagine if you have worked for 5 years in banking and financial services, you would know far more than I would know about the domain, right? So whatever I'm giving here is within the limited exposure and experience that I have or I have read about in domains that I'm not an expert in. So let me make that very, very clear. Very importantly, as we mentioned even in the previous live session that we conducted publicly, please leverage your experience and expertise to pick up the most relevant project. Imagine if you're 2 engineers working in the same domain. Let's say both of you are working in banking and financial services, right? Both of you could be working on a completely different projects. One of you may be an expert in, let's say, insurance, or the other person may be an expert in, let's say, traditional lending, right, or loans, right? So you should try and pick up a project by leveraging your expertise, domain expertise in banking and financial services. Pick up projects based on your expertise, not just based on what I am telling you here, because I will give you general guidelines with some examples obviously thrown in, right? But somebody who has worked for 5 years or even 10 years in banking or even 2 years in banking and financial services will surely be more knowledgeable than I am, right, in that domain, because I've never worked on it. Okay, so let's start with freshers. I'll get started so that, again, there are some general guidelines here that we'll go to. I'll also list some projects. Most important guideline for everyone, not necessarily for freshers, even for experienced folks, please do not do generic or run-of-the-mill projects. I see a lot of people doing it. Like we have some students who do not listen to our advice, who just pick up a project of their own and they do it because it's easy to do it. Nobody will care you. Nobody will care about your project when you go to the interview. Pick up a project which is exciting and interesting, which the interviewer, when you at the end of the day you want to transition to a machine learning role, pick up a project that your interviewer will care about. Okay, please do not do generic run of the mill projects. Please don't do them. They're useless. You might as well not do them itself. For example, I see people doing some simple email spam detection, some simple intrusion detections on some literally toy data sets, right? Very, very simple data sets. They are useless. You might as well not do them at all. Again, this is a general guidance, not just to freshers, but to anyone. Please do not do run-of-the-mill generic projects like spam detection intrusion. Okay, always try and pick up an exciting and innovative project. Okay, you should convince, again, as important as solving the machine learning components themselves, equally important is picking up an exciting and innovative project. When you go to the interview, you want the interviewer to look at your project and say, hey, I want to learn more about this. Okay, if your project is something like very, very generic that he has seen hundreds of resumes in, he would not even care about asking them. So all the effort you have put in your projects is useless then. So always ask yourself, is this an exciting and innovative project? So let me give you some couple of examples. Again, these examples right now are for freshers. I'll cover examples for experienced folks with software engineering background, with various backgrounds. But let's start with freshers. By freshers, I mean people who are in their third year, fourth year BTech, or first year and second year MTech, right? Or people who are currently pursuing their PhD, right? Or even similarly, if you're a pre-final or a final year student, either even pursuing MCA or MSc Computer Science, any of those areas, right? If you're a final year student or a pre-final year student, either of your BTech, MTech, MCA, doesn't matter. Okay, so I'll pick up some projects in the space that freshers or students encounter. For example, look at it. If you're at a university or a college, can you automate your attendance system? This is a system that you can build, deploy within your college or in your classroom. Imagine, it's a very simple system. This is the first project, right? As a student, this is a very good project. For example, imagine I have an Android phone. I can even buy a decent Android phone for 5,000 rupees today during one of these festival season sales. Build a simple Android app, place this camera at the entrance of your classroom. And whenever somebody passes through it, it detects them and gives automated attendance. This is a very simple system that colleges would love to help you on building. The cost of it is also very small. It's just a 5,000 rupees smartphone. You might actually have a used smartphone at home that your parents or siblings or your family has used and they're no more using it. Simple Android smartphone, you can build an automated attendance system. Imagine if you're a fresher and you come to an interview and say, I have built this automated attendance system with an accuracy of 99%, which we have deployed in my classroom or in my department. I would say, wow, that's very ingenious application. And then I'll talk about, okay, how did you do your app development? I'll talk about what sort of libraries did you use? How did you do face recognition? How much data set you needed? This is a very interesting project. And this is not some rocket science, right? This is something that any decent BTech student who knows about deep learning and convolutional neural networks, who can write, again, most of our course students can easily solve this problem. Okay, so this is a very simple, it's very innovative. As soon as you go to an interviewer will say, wow, you've actually deployed this system. The first question, if somebody comes to me and says this, I'd say, hey, have you actually deployed this system? Right? That's super duper useful for me. Right? So that's one type of application. Again, always pick exciting and innovative projects. The second project that I always felt was, again, some professors in some universities let you record the audio of their lectures. Okay, a lot of my friends used to do it at Indian Institute of Science. And if you have a great lecturer or a great faculty member whose audio lectures you can record, again, if your university professor says please don't record them, you can always get audio of lectures from publicly available lectures. If you go to MIT OCW, MIT OpenCourseWare, there are thousands of lectures by some of the world's best faculty. Just take the audio in this and make the audio searchable. For example, imagine there are lectures from operating system subject, right? And you should give a search query called semaphores, and this semaphore should be searchable in the audio of the lectures themselves, right? So searchable audio lectures, it's extremely useful for students. Again, I know that MIT and Carnegie Mellon University have done something like this on their university internal lectures or lectures on OCW. This is a very exciting project. Today, this is, I mean, of course, doing this 10 years back was very, very hard. But doing it today is very, very plausible. And on top of it, you can create an Alexa interface after that. So you have all of your audio lectures, right? You can now, I mean, first of all, you have to create audio, you have to convert your audio into features and searchable features, all of that stuff. And to take it to the next level, you could add an Alexa skill or a Google Assistant. You can integrate this audio search with Alexa or Google Assistant. That will make it a terrific project. Imagine if you go with this project. I mean, I would love to talk to you more about how you did this. Right? Again, these are real problems that students actually encounter. I'm not taking some rocket science problems. I'm taking problems that students in universities and colleges and college administration themselves encounter. Right? Very, very importantly, in BTech, you have during your college days, you have ton of time at your disposal. People sometimes tell us we don't have time as BTech students. Come on, you're joking. Okay, I have been through the same cycle. I've even been through a master's program. I got ample time even during my master's days at Indian Institute of Science. Right? So please take time to collect data for your project. Okay, because this is something that requires effort and time. If you can collect data, see, of course, one way to build an attendance system is to talk to all of your friends. Whoever is interested, take multiple photographs of theirs with their permission, obviously. Work with the college administration, collect the data also. Because many times data collection is an often overlooked aspect of data science problems. Okay, so if you can collect your own data, right, and build an end-to-end system using the data, you get extra bonus points. For example, I think I mentioned this in our previous live sessions also. One of our students, one of our course participants, he's an experienced person. He took the self-driving car case study that we have as part of our course videos. He implemented it on Indian roads by taking a smartphone, recording the videos using his car. So he actually collected actual data from Indian roads, applied convolution neural networks and LSTMs to build a self-driving car-like system for Indian roads, right? And I mean, I've discussed extensively with him because we mentored him, and he's a brilliant student. Okay, so all of the interviews that he attended, 90% of the discussion was on this project only. Again, this is an experienced person. Okay, this is not a fresher, but even a fresher can do this. You have ample time, folks. As a college student, you have more time than anything else. What you may not have is financial resources, right? To invest like thousands or even lakhs of rupees on things. But this is something that you can do with your smartphone. I'm assuming most of you have a decent or even an entry-level smartphone. So try to spend time collecting data for your projects because you get bonus points for that. Okay. So this is one project that a BTech student can do today. It's not rocket science, right? So let me walk you through some more examples, right? So again, as a fresher, you don't know which role you will go on into. You don't know what career you will go into, right? So try and have a lot of variability or variance in the projects that you do. Do one project around computer vision. Do one project around text. Do one project around tabular data. Do one project using audio. Because you don't know which type of company you would end up after your bachelor's or after your master's, right? So having done multiple projects in multiple domains is certainly beneficial because you don't have your own personal domain of expertise, right? So again, let me show some more projects that you could do, right? So examination invigilation using a webcam, right? Imagine, again, examination invigilation or proctoring as it is called in some countries is something that every college has to do, right? Imagine you're a bunch of students sitting. Imagine if you can place a webcam or a smartphone in the examination room, which tracks the whole thing and any anomalous behavior or any cheating, if it can trigger automatically. That's a terrific thing that colleges want to invest in, right? And this is a simple thing that you can work with a college administration and get things done, right? And all it needs is a simple webcam or a smartphone. That's all. Again, this is a more interesting project as a student. I mean, there are some universities, again, I'm not saying all universities, there are some universities where there is repetition of questions year after year. So can you take all the last 10-year questions from question papers and predict which question has the highest likelihood to reappear in the current year? This is extremely useful. Your friends will thank you, will love you, will appreciate your work. Can you build a simple statistical model which takes the last 10 years of question papers and predict which question has the highest probability of reoccurring? This is a problem that students would love. Again, this only will work if questions reappear. There are some universities which try to give always new questions. For such a system, this won't work, right? So similarly, another very interesting project that I always wanted to do was, for a given subject, you would have different textbooks. You can get e-copies of your textbooks also. Suppose, imagine you take 3 textbooks. Let's say textbook 1, textbook 2, textbook 3. Can you group, right? So for example, there is one paragraph here. Let's assume it's talking about some concept like finite state automata, okay? Or it's talking about some concept. Can you figure out the same concept in the other textbooks and group all of them? So that instead of reading 3 textbooks, a person can read these three paragraphs or these 3 pages from 3 different textbooks simultaneously, because you've grouped relevant subtopics from different textbooks. This is a text problem, right? Very useful problem as a student, right? So especially students who want to refer to multiple textbooks, this is a great source. Again, I have been a student myself, so these are problems that I always wanted to solve, right? So again, my BTech project, for those of you who are keen on it, was this was almost in 2007 when I graduated from BTech. My BTech project was very interesting. My BTech project was based on a very simple neural network. Again, I didn't know how neural networks work then. This is in 2007 when machine learning was unheard of by many people. So I took a laser light. Again, we used to have these laser pointers in those days. We could get it for like 100, 200 rupees. So I would throw a laser pointer and I would make a gesture. So I had VLC playing on my Linux box. So if I moved my laser pointer like this, right, on a wall, and this was captured by a webcam would automatically detect if I drew an arrow which is moving right or which is left, or I could draw any shape. I could draw any shape using the laser beam that was detected by my webcam, and it would take an action. For example, I connected this to VLC player. So whenever I drew this using my pointer, my camera would recognize it and it would take me to the next song. This would take me to the previous song. If I did this, it would increase the volume. If I did this, so this is basically simple gesture recognition using webcams, and instead of using my hands, I used a laser pointer because it was easier to do in BTech. Okay, very simple computer vision neural network problem. This was my BTech final year project. Again, not rocket science, but it was very innovative, right? At least I felt it was innovative in 2007. Today, I don't feel it very innovative because in the last 12 years, neural networks and deep learning and computer vision has become so advanced that you can build something like this in literally 20 lines of code. Okay. In 2007, we didn't have any libraries. I built everything from scratch, right? And I think if I recall, I wrote it in C++. Anyway, sounds good. So let's move on from freshers to, okay. So let's move on from freshers to, sorry. Okay. Just a second. Okay. So the next role that I'll cover about is software engineers, right? So we did talk about freshers, and then now let's move on to software engineers. So for software engineers, again, software engineers come in all shapes and sizes. It's a most misused title, I think, along with data scientist. Okay, I've seen people who can't even write code who call themselves software engineers, right? But I'm assuming here that software engineers work in various domains. You could be a software engineer working with a healthcare client or with a pharma client or a pharma company or banking and financial services or e-commerce or manufacturing. Depends on your domain. Again, if you're a software engineer, you could be a software engineer writing code in C, C++, Java, you name it, right? You could be writing code in any of these languages. My recommendation for you is to learn Python, and if possible R also if need be, but certainly Python, because Python has the best libraries for machine learning, deep learning, and all of these things. If you're already a Python developer, that's good. You don't have to worry about it. And again, as I mentioned even in the previous live session, always find a problem that is relevant to your role, to your team, to your organization, company, or client. Please, again, I'm repeating this, please do not solve some generic stuff. Please do not solve generic stuff. Okay, there is no use in it. Okay, always try to find a project. Suppose if your domain is healthcare, Within healthcare, what is your subdomain, right? And anything that you build, is it something that you can talk to your team and get it into production? Is it something that your client would like? Is it something that your company would like? Right? So these are the types of problems. Again, you have to put your thinking hats here. Okay, there is no shortcut here, and because we have thousands of students who work in different areas of healthcare, different areas of pharma, where I don't even know some of the terminology. Right? I'm giving you general guidelines. I'll also guide you through general projects in a while. But let's look at the guidelines first. Okay, always pick projects where you can obtain data either internally within your team or company or externally. If you don't have data, there is no machine learning. It's a joke, right? So any project that you pick, always first give preference to internal data. Talk to your manager, talk to your senior manager or director and say, here is a problem that I think can help our team or organization, and can you give me access to the internal data? And this is a project that I want to do in addition to my day-to-day duties. Okay. I'm sure 90% of managers or senior managers or directors will be more than happy if you say, this is a project that I think has value. Of course, you have to convince them that there is value. It's always good to do internal projects than external, but for some reason, if you don't get access to internal data, external is the second best option. Again, when anybody is looking at your project, okay, as an interviewer, if you say, okay, I've done these 3 projects or 4 projects, there are 3 major factors on which I will evaluate you. First and foremost, is the project innovative and relevant? Okay, if it is not innovative and relevant, I might as well say, okay, this guy did some generic stuff. I'll not even trust that you have done it yourself, because there are thousands of code bases publicly available. Probably you just picked up one of them and you changed it slightly and you got me this. This is waste of my time to even focus on this in the interview. Okay, so you have to pick up innovative and relevant to your domain of expertise. Okay, if it's not innovative, nobody will look at it. I gave you some simple examples of innovative projects for freshers and students, right? So think innovation is the key. So if you don't pick up innovative projects and do everything else, most likely it's not cool. Okay, again, you have to capture the attention of the interviewer with the quality and the innovation that you have done in your project, so that they focus most of their interview on this, and you get lots of advantages because of this. They would focus mostly on your project, and you know your project better than anybody else in the world, right? So you can actually crack that interview very easily. The second most important thing is how rigorously you're solving and how thoroughly you're solving it. You cannot say, okay, I'll just apply one algorithm and I'm done. Sorry, that's not. You have to do everything from data cleaning, data pre-processing, modeling, using different models, thinking about what is the business metric, all of that, up to productionization. Because remember, you're a software engineer. You better know how to productionize things. Otherwise, if you don't focus, if you skip any of them, if you're not thorough with all the components of a data science lifecycle, you're not doing a good job. You're not, again, doing something that is relevant to your role as a software engineer. Okay, this is super duper important. And rigor is also important, because instead of taking sites, you apply multiple machine learning models, all of that stuff. And you also are thorough with your whole sequence of steps. Again, we have discussed this in some of the previous live sessions in our own course video on YouTube itself. So please go through them if you want to know what is a data science life cycle, how to actually build projects and things like that. I'll not be covering how to do these projects because I've covered that in the previous live sessions. The third most important thing, nobody will trust that you have done all of this if you don't show them documentation and code. Again, if it is an internal project, you may not be able to share the code. That's perfectly all right. But you have to convince the interviewer that you have actually done it, which means you should actually do it, number one, that's important. And try to give all the details which you can give. Okay, see, this documentation can come from blogs, which we ask all of our students to write. Because a good detailed blog, I've shown you some really good examples of blogs in the previous live session that we've done. So innovation and relevance of the project, the thoroughness and the rigor with which you do the project, and documentation and code. This is to prove that you have actually done it. This shows that you can think very creatively and solve good problems. And this is showcasing your machine learning skills. All three of them are important. You can't skip any one of them and expect good results. Okay. So again, there are, as a software engineer, you can do domain dependent projects and domain independent projects. Okay. Since there are so many, I'll cover some of the projects from these domains also, but let me cover some domain independent and workplace related projects. These are projects that I wanted to solve as an employee myself at any company. I'll tell you, these are general problems that any working employee can solve, not necessarily software engineers. Remember, we all go into minutes, we all go into meetings, right? Whether you're a tech lead, whether you're a manager, whether you're a software engineer, we all do tons of meetings every day, right? At the end of the meeting, it's a very nice habit to write the summary of the meeting called the minutes of the meeting, right? Where you list down everything that has been discussed in the meeting itself. So one very interesting technology that is being built at companies like Microsoft is they're trying to record the whole meeting itself using audio devices. Like think of audio devices like Alexa or Google Smart Home, or even your smartphone. Forget about Alexa. Even using your simple smartphone with permission from everybody. Imagine if you can record the minutes of the meeting and make the whole meeting searchable with audio. I mean, imagine, of course, this is not easy. This is a project work that is being done at Microsoft by Microsoft Research. But even if you can build a proof of concept for this, people are not asking you to build a state-of-the-art solution. This is a problem that every employee, every manager, every program manager, every product manager faces. They have, again, I have done probably hundreds or even thousands of meetings myself in my professional career. And the biggest challenge for me is after the meeting is over, I spend 10-15 minutes listing down the summary of everything and send an email to everybody so that everybody knows what we have agreed upon, so that I have actual record of what we have discussed. So imagine if somebody could create minutes of the meeting or the summary of the meeting by listening to the audio and making this whole audio searchable. This is possible today with state-of-the-art and deep learning, right? Another very interesting application in the workplace is a meeting scheduler. Again, many of you may have encountered this, especially managers, team leads and program managers, product managers. You get an email from a colleague. Let's say colleague once sent you an email, says, I want to set up a meeting at 10 a.m. right? And you say, sorry, 10 a.m. I'm busy. Can we reschedule it at a different time? I'm working on something. So there is a lot of back and forth that happens over meetings. Okay, that's why most senior managers, directors, vice presidents have something called as executive assistants. Okay, these are actual people who help manage these senior members like vice presidents, directors, even senior managers in some companies, with arranging all the meetings so that they don't waste time. So there is a company called X.AI, right, which actually tries to automate meeting schedulers by looking at it's like a smart assistant, okay, which looks at your email and tries to work with the other person on the best time that works for both of you. So you can look at X.AI and how it works. This is a very nice startup out of Boston, which is trying to simplify meeting scheduling, which takes, again, some of you may not know this. I've spent there are some instances where I've spent 80% of my day in meetings. Okay, and I have done meetings across the world in different time zones. It can be a nightmare. Okay, so meeting scheduler is a very, very important workplace tool. This is a workplace tool. Remember that these are anybody who is working can build these tools and use these tools. So if meeting scheduler is a very interesting, again, you don't have to build the whole product the same way X.AI has built, but even if you can build a proof of concept, it's very good. Again, a great place for good innovative ideas for projects is startups. Because a startup like X.AI is solving a real world, really important problem, right? I learned about it because one of my friends works at this, one of the people that I mentored, not a friend exactly, somebody that I mentored works at X.AI, right? And he talked about how they work, and I said, wow, this is super ingenious and super interesting project to work on, right? So always look at interesting startups in your domains to see what they're working on. That's a great place for good ideas. Okay, another very interesting project that I always wanted to work on, especially if you are working close to HR teams or anything like that. Can you predict the performance rating of an employee using the data that is already available as a HR person, right? Imagine as a company, you can read all the emails, you can look at all the code, you can look at all the calendar of a given employee, because this is all company property, right? By using all this data that a company already has about an employee, can you predict the performance rating or the annual performance rating of the person himself? Can you do that? This is a project that people at HR love to work on. Again, Google itself, so Google HR is very, very data and analytics driven. So Google HR doesn't do this performance rating using emails, etc. But they look at lot of data about employees to see what factors actually enable employees to work or to continuously work at Google for a longer period of time. How do you reduce attrition? How do you improve performance of employees? Right? That type of, so Google's HR team has a data analysis wing itself. I have a friend from Indian Institute of Science days who works in the team as a data scientist. Very ingenious work that they do. You can read up about it. Some of this data is publicly available. The work that Google HR does on data analysis is publicly available, right? Similarly, imagine you guys might be sitting on large amounts of code repositories, documentation, internal wikis, all of this stuff. Many of this stuff might have a very simple search engine. Many of these things may have a very, very simple search engine. For example, if you look at Wikipedia search engine, it sucks, to be honest. I don't remember searching on Wikipedia using Wikipedia search. I always search on Google. So can you improve the search facility that you have on your internal software, like your code, documentation, wikis, etc.? This is a very, very interesting application where companies like Microsoft today and IBM, right? And even Google was working in this space for a while, but there are a lot of large companies which want to get into this space because there is so much of ill-organized data in large companies. Imagine if you can build a system, build a better search for your code, documentation and wikis in your own company. I mean, your company would love you for that, right? Similarly, there is a very interesting case study, and you can get all the data. This is a problem that Amazon put out on Kaggle, right? As a competition problem. Okay, and whoever won this competition got interviewed at Amazon and all of that stuff. This is about when a new employee joins, what all stuff does he get access? Today what happens is when a new employee joins, he has to talk to his manager. His manager now talks to other teams and gets him access to some database, gets him access to some computers, all of that stuff. Now, can you automate some of that part? Because managers really don't like to do that. Okay, this is an employee, this is a manager. It's a big waste of manager's time. Can you automate some of that access granting for a new employee? Again, if you want data, this data is available on on Kaggle itself, because there's a very nice data set that Amazon created for a competition's sake. This is something that your IT department within the company would love to work on, right? Again, these are problems that you're solving for not your team, but your company. Similarly, can you automatically rate code quality? Okay, this is a very interesting project. Imagine if you're a developer and let's assume, can you look at Java code that anyone writes, a Java class or just a Java function or a Java module, whatever it is. Can you automatically rate the quality of code that you have? Okay, actually at companies like Google, Amazon, etc., when you submit your code, suppose I write a Java class and I submit it, it goes through a bunch of checks. Okay, some bunch of basic quality checks, right? And it will only be pushed into our internal Git only if the code quality is up to the standard. Like for example, imagine if somebody did not write enough comments. Okay, so can you somehow create a code quality rater wherein your data set is very simple. You look at all the code which is in your internal repository or which is on GitHub, which is of high quality and low quality. That's it. It's a simple binary classification task. So this can improve, again, if you can build a code quality rating system, it can improve the overall code quality that your whole company is working on. Right? So this is a very interesting project. Again, this type of projects are already done at some of the world's best engineering companies like Google, Amazon, etc. Another problem that I always faced was we all write notes on whiteboard, right? When we're discussing in meetings, we write it on whiteboards. Then we take a picture, we send the picture to everyone. Can I somehow take a picture of the whiteboard, send it to some internal server, which makes the whole thing searchable? I struggled through this problem because I would be in tons of discussions with folks. I would draw the whiteboards, I would take pictures, share it with people. But then if I look at my smartphone, I have hundreds of these whiteboard pictures. And if I want to search them, I can't search them. Right? Can you make whiteboard to digital or whiteboard pictures that you take? Can you make these pictures searchable? If I say something like, okay, AI course, okay, can it search wherever I mentioned AI course? Right? So that will be good. Similarly, this is another slightly off swinger. For example, imagine in the corridors, right? In the corridors of your company where you already have security cameras, right? Again, not probably where you're sitting. There are some places where security cameras are already there. Can you look at the security camera feed and measure how stressed out employees are or how happy employees are by just looking at their facial expressions, just by looking at their body language? Right? So this is something that HR folks will be very happy to work on. Right? Can you measure the stress or can you measure the happiness of your employees using the camera feed from the publicly placed cameras in your company? Right? Similarly, most companies have cafeteria, IT services, all these places, right, which you use every day. And there may not be a clean feedback system to give feedback on your cafeteria food. You might have to write email, all of that stuff. Again, nobody wants to take time to write email, all of that stuff. Imagine if I just place a small microphone or a small smartphone or a tablet at the entrance or exit of cafeteria, the way you see in some airports nowadays. Just click a button, give an audio feedback. Because giving audio feedback is much more easy than writing and typing something. Right? This is a feedback system that people in your company, especially senior management, would love to hear. Right? Again, these are non-domain specific projects. Remember, these are projects that I wanted to solve as an employee at various companies. Okay, these are not at all domain specific. These are problems for HR. These are problems for various teams within your company, which would, again, these are real world problems. These are not some cooked up problems. These are problems that do matter. Right? So I call them domain independent and workplace related problems. Right? Let's take some domain specific problems. Okay, again, domain specific internal data. I don't know what internal data you have at your own company because every student or every employee is different. So I look at some external data that is publicly available on places like Kaggle. For example, let's take this, right? Let's take this simple example here. Suppose if you are working in healthcare, somebody was asking this in the comment section, right? Suppose if you're going to healthcare, right? So let's go to healthcare. Okay. So all I searched was, look at what I searched. I searched on Google Kaggle healthcare. That's all I did. Nothing else. Okay. This gives you tons of data sets. Okay. This is some ophthalmology data. This is some cervical cancer. This is a very data science bowl challenge. There are tons of breast cancer data, diabetes data, malaria cell data. There is tons of data. I mean, there are, look at this. There are 239 data sets related to healthcare. You can pick up any problem that is relevant to your domain and solve it. Again, within healthcare, there are multiple parts. Healthcare insurance, like healthcare device manufacturing, whatever. Kaggle has some of the largest repositories of world-class, really good data. Right? Again, as I told you, if you have internal data, try to work with internal data. That should always be your first preference. If you don't have internal data, it's perfectly okay. Use extra. See, just a Google search away. Similarly, somebody was talking about banking and financial services, right? So if I just type Kaggle banking, so all I did was I just Googled Kaggle plus banking and financial services. This is all banking data. This is from real data. This is from real companies about credit rating, about merchant category, about customer transaction prediction, from real banks. This is some housing data, right? Some data from World Bank, right? There are tons of real world data, real world competition. There are 8 competitions here. If you're working in banking, why not just solve all these problems, right? Again, this is from the French company BNP Paribas, right? And this is about claims management. I think insurance claim management. Right? So lots of interesting problems in banking and financial. It's just a Google search away. Similarly, I just searched Kaggle insurance and I got this Prudential life insurance data. Prudential is one of the largest life insurance corporations in the world. Again, basically it's all about making life insurance purchasing easy. Again, whenever you're solving the problem, if you cannot get internal data, use the external data, but do a extremely thorough solution and document your solution. That's super duper important, right? Similarly, again, I just Google searched again. I just Google searched Kaggle insurance, right? Here are some nice 8 problems that you have here, from credit scoring to whether a loan will default or not. Again, predicting the probability of default here, likelihood of insurance claims, right? Which current customers will still be at the company after 6 months. This is very nice. This is about churn prediction. Right? So these are all real world data with real world challenges, and instead of solving some simpler problems, solve Kaggle problems because they're much more exciting. Again, somebody was asking about manufacturing, right? Look at this. This is Mercedes-Benz Greener Manufacturing. This is actually a competition that Mercedes-Benz created on Kaggle. Again, I'm no expert in manufacturing, but I'm sure if the prize money is $25,000, it must have been a good problem, right? And this is by Daimler, which is the parent company of Mercedes-Benz. Similarly, there is a production line performance problem by Bosch, which is one of the largest industrial component manufacturers in the world, right? So there is no dearth of data and problems. The easiest place to find data is Kaggle, trust me. It's the easiest place. And Kaggle has tons of, you can pick any domain or subdomain, you will find problems. Again, to be honest with you, I'm no expert in any of them. Okay, I've read a little bit about healthcare, I've read a little bit about insurance, I've read a little bit about banking, but I've never worked in these domains. If you ask me about e-commerce, I can give you hundreds of ideas based on problems that we solved or the teams that I worked with, that I mentored, that I learned under, that I learned from, right? So again, if you don't, again, any of these if you're a software engineer, you can pick any of these problems that are listed here. These are all our domain independent problems, which are still very exciting. These are domain specific problems that you can get from Kaggle, right? Again, if you're picking a domain specific problem, always try to get internal data. If you don't have internal data, it's okay to get external data, but please pick, again, I wrote these three measures, right? Innovative and relevant, rigorous and thorough, documentation with code. Okay, those are three important factors. Now imagine if you're a tester. Okay, let me see. Okay, so yeah, seems okay. So if you're a tester, right? Again, testing comes in two variations, manual and automation testing. What types of projects can you work on? Okay, so these are, again, all the rules that I mentioned in the previous roles hold here also. Okay, all the general guidelines hold here. These are some of the problems. Again, I'm no expert in testing. I have worked with testing teams, both manual and automation testing teams at various companies, including Applied AI course. And this is based on discussions with them, right? Can you group similar bugs or tickets? One of the biggest jobs of manual or automation testing folks is to have bug tracking or ticket tracking. These are bugs that the testing folks, whether manual or automation, have come across and they file a ticket, right? Can you group similar bugs by clustering, by either using the text description or by looking at the resolution time and things like that? Then can you perform some simple statistical data analysis and text data analysis to understand why some tickets are taking more time than others? Again, this is extremely useful feedback to your testing manager or testing senior manager. Because if you can go back to your manager or senior manager and say, okay, these are the types of tickets that are taking extremely long amount of time. Probably we should talk to our engineering teams or development teams and tell them to fix these problems. Okay, this is extremely valuable for testing teams. Similarly, can you automatically find the best person or the team to assign a ticket or a bug to instead of manually going and doing it? You're sitting, again, all these is repetitive tasks. All these are repetitive tasks. Any repetitive task where you have lot of data, right, and where there is some human judgment, right, you can automate this very easily. Similarly, can you predict the time to resolve a bug so that you have real estimates? Again, this is something that both engineering managers and software and testing managers would love to have, because if you can predict how much time it will take a bug to be fixed, if it's not fixed within that time, you can go back and ask your engineering folks, something is wrong here. We expect it to be fixed within so and so days based on a machine learning model. Again, for all of these projects, you need to have access to your whole repository of bugs, tickets, when was a bug filed, when was it resolved, all of the data you need to have access to. I'm assuming if you're a manual tester or an automation tester, you have access to some of this data, right? Similarly, if you're doing some UI testing, right, this is something that is very interesting. If you're doing UI testing, can you find, again, some of the UI testing can be automated, right? You basically click on a button using some automation scripts and then the UI changes. Can you find anomalies or outliers in the UI itself? This is basically finding image outliers, right? This is simply finding image outliers. Can you do something like this? This is extremely useful because it can save a lot of time for manual validation. Anything that is repetitive, data driven with human intuition. Again, images are extremely hard to automate using standard automation scripts. Why don't you use image outliers using convolution neural networks? They do a pretty good job today, right? So these are some of the problems that the testing folks can do. Now let me also focus on more aspects of testing. Again, this is something that I really was interested in. Imagine if you're a manager of a testing team. Imagine if I can have a simple audio search of bugs. Again, audio search is extremely intuitive to humans. One way is I go to the whole web-based interface for the whole ticket management system. I enter something and I get it. But what if I can just pick up my phone and say, hey, how many bugs are not resolved right now? Okay, or how many bugs are expected to be resolved in the next 24 hours, or how many bugs are delayed. If you're a manager or a senior manager or even a lead of testing teams, this is a service that you would love to have. And imagine if you can integrate it via Alexa or Google Assistant, that will be terrific. Even if you don't have it, you can just build a simple mobile app wherein you just see, what does it require? You take the audio, you convert it to text query, you convert this text query now into a query into this whole system and get the results. Right? Extremely useful. And again, make these results, convert this text into audio, which is simpler, and read this out. Right? Similarly, you can do some data visualization work on bugs. Okay, suppose imagine if I have 10,000 bugs that are currently there. Right? I can group bugs based on how much time they took and based on the text that they have, and I can create nice visualizations. We talk about T-SNE visualizations, right? Again, there are some free videos on our YouTube channel where we explain about what T-SNE does. Even in our course videos, there are some free videos you can check out. Data visualization using things like T-SNE can help us give lots of insights into how our data is grouped with nice data visualization project. Similarly, if you're an automation tester with Selenium knowledge, okay, actually we have done one case study like this, wherein again this case study is also freely available on our course website. You can go check it out, wherein we took images of I think over 1 lakh fashion and apparel items from Amazon. Again, we used Amazon's product search API for this. We did not scrape it because Amazon has very strict rules on scraping. So we used Amazon's search API to actually fetch this data, and we did a case study on this. We did basically a simple fashion search engine using this data, right? With actual data from Amazon fashion or Amazon apparel itself. Similarly, you can scrape data from various websites. Again, when you're scraping, I'm sure you know about robots.txt. Please do it in a legally correct and legally appropriate manner. Okay, I'm sure if you know Selenium, you know about robots.txt and rules on how to scrape data in a genuine way. If you can scrape data, you can get data from any website, right? You can get data from Yahoo Finance. Right? For those of you who don't know, Yahoo Finance has a lot of stock market data. Right, you can get data from YouTube itself, right? You can get data from companies like Amazon. You can get data from any company and build some interesting solutions around it. As a Selenium developer, you're sitting on a extremely powerful skill to obtain data from the internet. Right? Again, Selenium is extremely easy to pick up. The basics of Selenium, I'm not saying the advanced concepts in Selenium are easy, but the basics of Selenium are extremely simple to pick up. We did a case study at Applied AI course, which is also publicly available. You can check it out on our website, wherein we just simply used Amazon's APIs and built this whole case study around it. Right? Extremely simple. Again, as a tester, these are some very interesting links of startups. Functionize is a startup which is trying to automate test case generation. If you're doing test case generation, Function is a very interesting startup. Again, I've also linked at some nice projects that people have done where they are detecting code bugs automatically. Very interesting piece of work using deep learning. Right? Again, there is a whole project on GitHub called Deep Bugs. Here the objective is to find bugs in code using automation. Okay, using machine learning, deep learning, etc. This is all about generating tests. This is a very interesting startup. Again, startups are a great place to look at what interesting projects you can do. Again, you can go through any of them. Again, of course, you have to know machine learning and deep learning to work on these projects. This is just a sample. You can write it as 10, 11. These are multiple projects that you could pick up and work on if you're a manual tester or an automation tester. Similarly, if you're a database engineer or a database administrator, right? There's some very interesting projects that I always wanted to build on. I'll give you some reference links also. One problem that I was very curious to work on was natural language to SQL. Very interesting problem. Today, only people who know SQL can query the database that you are an engineer of or an admin of. What if people can speak in natural language? Imagine if people can say, imagine I have some database of, let's say, students. Okay, can I just use natural language? Can I say, hey, how many students finished assignment 13 today? Okay, or can I say, how many queries which we have gotten in the last 1 day have been answered in under 4 hours? Okay, so again, these are simple. I don't have to write the SQL query. Can I speak or can I write in natural language? Can you convert that to an SQL query and execute it? So again, I've provided you some very nice link here of lots of interesting projects. Very nice link. This is from Stack Exchange, where there's a very nice discussion. Very nice projects that can be done here. And I know startups which are working on this area also. Okay, and you don't have to build a world-class product. You can start with some simple product for your own database. As a database engineer admin, you already have access to the database schemas. You have all the database at your disposal. Can you build a natural language interface to this? That will be terrific. Even if you can do it for just one database, if not the hundreds of databases that you might be managing, right? It's a problem that I was very passionate to work on at some point, right? I got this idea because I was fed up because I was working with some sales marketing folks and they were not very conversant in SQL. It was taking them a lot of time to learn SQL. I said, come on guys, we are already at such an advanced stage. Why can't they just say what they want and we should get the SQL query for it? It came out of my own pain point that I faced while working with others at various companies, right? So the next thing is, can you mine the logs, okay, whether the text of the log or the SQL queries of the queries themselves, to find inefficient queries which are taking too much time or which are not at all optimal. Can you find inefficient queries, and to the person who has thrown this query at your database, can you suggest similar queries that are written much more efficiently, right? So as soon as somebody submits an SQL query to your database, can you just run it through a simple text mining or an SQL query mining system and say, this query is going to be very, very inefficient, and you can give feedback to the person who submitted this query and saying that, hey, here are other queries that are written much more efficiently, which are very similar to yours. Okay, this will improve the experience of the database users and also improve the efficiency of your database itself. Similarly, can you have an end-to-end Q&A system? So here, this is just about, you say something, you get an SQL system. Can you have a chatbot? So by Q&A system, I mean, can you have a chatbot, complete chatbot, end-to-end Q&A system, like a chatbot on your relational or non-relational data? You could have non-relational data like text data stored in columnar stores or text databases, etc. Right? So this is a subset of this problem, right? As a database engineer, database admin, this problem is golden. Trust me, this problem is golden. This problem is, again, these are problems that I faced when I was using databases, when I was interacting with database engineers and database admins. Similarly, now let's talk about web developers, app developers, right? Again, I'm just giving you a flavor of some of these problems. If you're a front-end developer, right? Come on, you should be able to learn Selenium in no time. Selenium, along with JavaScript, CSS, you can do it for scraping. The projects that I talked about for automation testing folks, you can do all of them. And better still, this is very important. Whatever solution you build a real-world web app to showcase your results. If you're a web developer, you can use TensorFlow.js. There are a lot of nice, ingenious, you can just Google search TensorFlow.js projects. You'll get tons of beautiful projects. Similarly, if you're an app developer, whatever you're building, try to publish an app using that. So TensorFlow, you can write, you can execute TensorFlow code. Again, for those of you who don't know, TensorFlow is one of the best and the most advanced deep learning frameworks and deep learning system or deep learning modules built by Google, right? So you can run TensorFlow code on Android or iOS. If you're a web developer or an app developer, please put out your system, run a web app or a mobile app where you can showcase your results. Some simple stuff that I encountered, right? Can you crack captchas, right? Of course, today with advances in convolution neural networks and other stuff, there are captcha crackers. As a web developer, can you crack the captchas using concepts from deep learning, especially convolution neural networks? And anything that you build, please build a web app or a mobile app using TensorFlow.js or TensorFlow for Android, right? Some simple examples. These are not some rocket sciencey examples. Okay, some more projects, right? Some more interesting projects. So on web pages, as a front-end developer, one of the big problems is UI UX problems. can you compute something called as dwell time? Dwell time basically means, imagine this is my web page. How much time is a user spending on this part of the page? How much time is a user spending on this part of the page? How much time is a user spending on this page or this part of the page, right? So can you track all of this behavior, obtain the data and create nice visualizations and also figure out the block points. For example, probably the user is searching for something and he's not able to find that feature. He'll keep, again, if you look at the data analysis, this is a pure data analysis and data visualization work. Okay, this is very, very relevant for front-end developers because you guys know already JavaScript, CSS, Ajax, all of this stuff, right? Right. So using the tools that you already have at your disposal, you can build nice. There are startups which do it, by the way. There are startups which do it, to be honest. Okay, you can build a system like this. And if you know JavaScript, if you're a good front-end developer, this shouldn't take a lot of time. Similarly, this is a problem that we worked on and we built, which is for many of our course registered students, we conduct self-assessment tests wherein we record the screen with their permission, obviously. We record the screen of the test taker and we also record with their webcam. But we also want to automate this whole invigilation part because we don't have enough manpower to sit here manually. So we are doing automated invigilation or proctoring when we conduct these assessment tests for our students. This automated proctoring, what it does is very interesting. Through the webcam, it looks at the person's face, and if there is any anomalous behavior, imagine if he's looking aside or if he's looking at somebody for some help, any anomalous behavior it will trigger, and it will let us know that there is some problem here where we manually interfere. This is an actual problem. Somebody was asking about problems in education, right? This is a very, very important problem in education. Can you automatically perform invigilation just using a webcam and your again, we use both webcam and the microphone, right? So this is a simple system that we built, part of it using TensorFlow.js, part of it on the server side, right? So we continuously monitor through the webcam and the screen recording on what this test taker is doing. If we find any anomalous behavior, any suspicious behavior, we simply inform the manual proctor, asking them to look at it, and if there is a suspicious behavior, we either talk to the candidate or we invalidate the whole exam, right? Similarly, there are a lot of online games. Can you build some systems to play these games automatically? Simple games like Mario and others, right? Nothing very fancy. Again, I've never played much games, so I'm no expert in this. Another very interesting tool that you guys could build, especially the web developers and even mobile developers, is interactive machine learning tools and algorithms. You can go to this page called distill.pub. Again, this is a very nice blog that is with contributions from Google and some of the best companies in the world. So you can read up about this. Again, this is something that we used as part of our course to showcase how tsne works. This is an old blog that we used, right? Again, here you can see the whole tsne itself implemented on a small data set with all cases with an interactive machine learning. The whole tsne algorithm itself is implemented using an interactive machine learning tool, web-based or mobile-based thing. You can go to distill.pub and see lots of such nice machine learning tools on the web itself. They're terrific. They're so beautiful, right? Again, these are projects that web developers and mobile developers can look at. Similarly, look at again, I'm no mechanical engineer. My knowledge of mechanical engineering is very basic. But here is one thing that I mentored one of the startups, right? This is called condition-based monitoring, also called predictive maintenance, right? So the startup that I worked with, again, there is a lot of data sets. Again, there is data set on machine failure prediction that I've linked here. Again, my knowledge of mechanical engineering is very limited, but the problem that I mentored on was that the startup that I was working with had a lot of accelerometer data. They also collected some ultrasound data and visual data. So using all of these three things, can you now predict when will the machine fail? Okay, that's what is called predictive maintenance. Or when would we need to change the oil in the bearings? Right? Bearing failure is one of the most common failures, right? Can you predict when the bearings will fail? Right? This whole area is called predictive maintenance, and I've provided some links to you here, right? So where you can get data sets for this. Again, I'm no expert in mechanical engineering, so whatever I'm telling you here is very, very limited. But there's a lot of nice academic research, right? If you go to, this is from Carnegie Mellon, In their mechanical engineering department, they have a whole sub area where they're working on mechanical engineering. They're working on problems in the intersection of mechanical engineering and machine learning. This is everything from again, let's go to the site and see this, right? Again, this is one place where I learned about some exciting work that's being done today. Right? So let's go here. Just a second. It's taking a while to load. This is CMU, right? Yeah, it should have been fast. Okay, yeah, it's loaded. So mechanical engineering, research, machine learning, right? So they're working on problems around human health. And you can read lots of very interesting research papers, data sets, all of these things from here, right? So similarly, autonomous vehicles, right? Of course, you guys know a lot about the mechanical engineering behind vehicles, right? Of course. And if you can apply some of the machine learning, deep learning techniques, you can certainly work on these problems. Some material discovery, I don't know anything about these topics, okay? But there is a lot of research, design and manufacturing work. Again, I showed you some work here, right, from Bosch and where is this? Okay, I showed you some work from Mercedes-Benz and Bosch, right? These are also problems around mechanical engineering and manufacturing that you could work on. Again, please understand that my knowledge of mechanical engineering is limited. That's why I'm not able to go too deep into it. But for any domain, whatever your domain is, a Google search is extremely useful to find some exciting work. Most importantly, look for startups. Why not just look for startups? There are tons of very exciting and interesting startups, right? So why don't we just look at these startups and look at some interesting stuff around them, right? So that's what I would recommend. Again, sorry for taking slightly longer than what I expected, but I can spend the next 10-15 minutes answering your questions. Okay, I'm back here. I'm looking at the chat window. I'll try to answer a few questions. Where are we? Okay, somebody is asking about farming. Yeah, just again, Google search, smart farming, right? There are a lot of companies in the intersection of robotics and farming, especially in the US, where the cost of labor is high, where they want to cut these or pluck these things automatically. That's one very interesting project, but for that, you need to be an expert in mechanical engineering, robotics, and machine learning, not just machine learning, right? Similarly, there is a lot of work. Again, you can just Google search for it. Again, let me show you this. Somebody asked about farming, right? So for example, let me type Kaggle farming. Okay. So, there is again, agriculture, farming or agriculture. So there are also a lot of very interesting work on plant. Okay, so look at these data sets. Is there some competitions? Okay, let me look at some. So I remember some competition, African soil challenge. Yes. Okay. So this is a nice problem. Okay, I remember reading about it at some point. So this is about predict physical and chemical properties of soil using spectral measurements. This is a problem around education. This is a problem around soil management and irrigation and agriculture, right? So of course, Kaggle has lots of these very, very interesting data sets that you can pick up from. Again, I'm no expert in agriculture or farming or any of these things, but I'm sure you can get these stuff, right? So any good websites to get machine learning code for references for beginners? I mean, Kaggle has a lot of kernels. You can read up about it. I love Kaggle for that. Kaggle is now owned by Google anyway. So yeah, Kaggle is one very interesting source. The other thing is GitHub. Just Google search. Okay, Google search, GitHub, you'll get tons of stuff. Somebody is saying if internal banking data is not easily available, I gave you so many external references, right? I showed you a while ago during the live session that you can just Google search Kaggle banking. There are tons of banks which have put out some relevant data where you can work on it, right? So if internal data is not available, you can certainly work on external data, not a problem. So somebody is talking about should projects be different for managers and senior managers? Certainly. There is a live session that we did just before this, I think about 3 weeks or 4 weeks back, where I talk about with experience how the project should change. The topic could be the same thing, but the rigor with which you solve a problem, the business acumen that you use, the mathematical rigor, and also the engineering rigor that you solve a problem. If you are a senior manager, let's say, right? I expect you, or a manager for that matter, or somebody with 5 or 10 years experience, I expect you to solve the problem end to end using all the proper design patterns of engineering, I would expect you to actually solve it at scale if you have some experience in databases or data warehousing, right? I mean, for the same problem, for somebody with 2 years experience, we are okay if he does a decent solution, a rigorous end-to-end, decently productionizable solution. When I have somebody with 5 years or even 10 years experience, I also want to look at the design patterns, the high-level design, the low-level design. Those are stuff that I also want to see, because that person already should know all of this by default, right? So the depth and the rigor of the project itself changes dramatically as you become more and more senior. Again, we have done a live session in one of the, I think the previous live session itself. We have discussed about it, and please go through that. That will be extremely useful, because we covered it for somebody with 0 years, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, etc. Okay. Okay, sounds good. For digital marketing, again, don't worry about digital. There are tons of, again, Kaggle, let's say click prediction. Click prediction is one of the most important things in digital marketing, right? Because most of these are cost per click models, right? So there are tons of data sets available on Kaggle itself, right? Again, we have done one of these, we have taken one of these and done a case study as part of the course also, right? So tons of stuff available there, not a problem. Somebody is asking how to make a chatbot. We did a live session on that, so you can check it out. Okay, sounds good. Any use cases in the mainframe domain? Again, I am not an expert in mainframes. My knowledge of IBM 370 or even mainframes is very, very limited. I've read about some of the architecture designs that IBM did, stuff like that. But if you're a mainframe designer, I'm assuming you're very good with scripting, right? So pick up some problem around mainframes. Again, I've never used a mainframe in my life. I've read about it from a theoretical viewpoint, but never used it. So I may not be the right person to guide you on that. But the core objective is this. If there is any problem where you have data, where you have a repetitive task with some human intuition to make a decision, where doing it is tedious and time consuming, right? Any task like that, you should be able to apply some machine learning to improve the system. That's the goal there, right? So somebody is saying, apart from machine learning, should we need to learn app development, web development, etc.? See, if you're not a web developer or an app developer, don't worry about it. But just document your solution, put all of your code in GitHub, right? If you're a student, right? If you have time at your disposal, why not learn it? It's so easy. Doing web development and app development is so easy, to be honest with you, right? It's extremely easy. I mean, you can pick it up very easily. If you know basic programming, picking up web development or app development shouldn't be very hard. You can go with the flow actually. That's how I learned app development. I was actually developing an app and I learned app development, especially Android development, as I developed the app. Okay, because my foundational concept of computer science is strong, right? My knowledge of programming is decent. I understand how programming languages, classes, all these concepts work. So if you're a student, especially in third year or final year, if you have time, please learn it. It's a good skill to have in the long run. So middleware services like SAP, etc. Again, look at it like this, right? Even if for a middleware service, everything that I mentioned for databases is relevant to you. Because your middleware, again, I'm no expert here. From what I understand, your middleware is trying to connect two pieces of software, right? Using some intermediate code. That's what it's trying to do. Effectively, that's what it's trying to do, right? Now, if you are working with data which is there in SAP's HANA or any other data store, can you build some machine learning model on the data that you have access to? That's the simplest question to ask, right? So again, I've never used SAP in my life, so I'm no expert at it, but I can give you general guidelines on how to think about it. Even the topics that I listed are topics where I have worked on or I've thought about or I've read about extensively. Again, you can say things like this, SAP machine learning. Look at what SAP is doing in machine learning, right? So let's look at this. Okay, so let me do it for you. Okay, SAP machine learning. I don't know what SAP is doing in machine learning. Oh, SAP, I've heard about this. SAP has this platform called Leonardo. What does Leonardo do? I've heard about this Leonardo software. Look at this. SAP is trying to do intelligent RPA. SAP is also doing conversational AI using the data that they have in their own SAP systems. Why not learn about, if you already know SAP and if you know some basic machine learning, why not learn SAP Leonardo? This is a terrific tool. Why not? Right? I'm sure these guys, SAP would have terrific researchers working on these problems. Learn about this conversational AI system and the intelligent RPA. And of course, if you know machine learning, you will have much more deeper understanding of how these things are working. You can build some of these systems. Probably, when you learn about it, why don't you build a simple conversational AI system on the SAP platform data that you have? Again, I don't know SAP internally in too much detail to be able to comment on it, but just a Google search away. Most of these things are mostly a Google search away from discovering what these companies are doing. There is in your what is this company? This company that does customer CRM, Salesforce, right? Salesforce has this terrific thing called Einstein, right? Which they built on their Salesforce system, the customer relationship management system. It's beautiful, right? Again, you can read up if you're working on Salesforce. You can read up about Einstein, how Einstein works, and try to build a simpler version of Einstein as a simple prototype or proof of concept. Why not? Right? Of course, you may not be able to build to the quality that Einstein is built, because remember, SAP as a company is building for every client that, Salesforce as a company is building for every client that they have. They want to build generic systems. But you can build a specific system for your client or for your company, okay, on Salesforce or SAP or any of these systems, right? Sounds good. Risk in finance. So any projects around risk in finance, trading, dude. I mean, come on. Again, you can get some nice data sets and nice problems on Kaggle itself. Just type Kaggle stock prediction. You get data sets from 2 Sigma. You get data sets from some of the best hedge funds or quantitative hedge funds in the world. You can certainly do that, right? Kaggle is a great source. Google search is a better source any day. Okay. Sounds good, folks. I'm sorry I couldn't answer some of your questions, especially around mainframes, because I don't know much about it, to be honest with you. I hope today's session would help you get some idea on what to do next. Please remember not to do generic stuff. Okay, please try not to do generic stuff. For any domain that you want to work on, just Google search that with Kaggle or that with data sets, that with deep learning. Suppose if I want to do, let's say, cybersecurity, somebody is asking about that question. Cybersecurity, deep learning, Kaggle, you'll get data sets. You'll see what problems companies are working on. I'll say cybersecurity, machine learning startups. You'll get very interesting startups, especially in Israel, that work on cybersecurity stuff, right? So these are again, I'm no expert in cybersecurity. To be again very honest with you, I have never worked on cybersecurity. But if you have good foundational machine learning knowledge and if you have some domain knowledge, I'm sure you can build good solutions around it, right? I hope this session was informative and hope some of you will end up doing some innovative projects. If you do an innovative project, feel free to send the detailed description, documentation, your blog, anything to team at Applied AI course. We would love to see it, read it, and hopefully learn a few things from it. And if it's very good, we would cover it in one of our live sessions so the other people also can benefit from it. Okay. Thank you, folks. I'm sorry I've eaten slightly more time than the 60 minutes that we thought of, but have a good day, have a good weekend. Thank you for joining once again.